Saka, chance, goal, Arsenal.
Let's delve into this then. Let's start on the Sun on Sunday. It focuses on Arsenal. We can have a look at that headline again. Victory, but Gyökeres double, Kid Max's debut, and Eze Bow marred by Saka and Odegaard KOs. John, let's start with you. You obviously follow Arsenal all the time. We'll focus on their injuries in just a moment, but just on their performance itself. Last week, there was talk of, well, it was a lot of grit. They weren't the better team against Manchester United, but they grinded out that result. Did we see more of what we expect to see from Arsenal this season yesterday?
I think we definitely did in the second half. I thought first half, actually, I thought it was quite sluggish and a bit slow. And until Bukayo Saka scores that second goal, I think that's when it gave Arsenal lift-off. I do product.
Gyökeres, Mark. He needs that, doesn't he? He needs to get on the score sheet early.
Limited at times. Didn't look fit. He looked like he's had a disruptive pre-season, which he has, hasn't he? So he looked like he was a bit off the pace, but obviously first home game, promoted team at home. If you're a centre forward, you know you need a goal to get your kind of confidence up and running. And he scored the goal. It was a good goal as well. I mean, he made it work for himself. He got it on the far side, cut inside. It was a bit of a scruffy finish in the end, but he got a goal that he made himself. So it wasn't just a penalty. So 2 goals in your home debut, it's a good start. I think we all kind of agree that he might not be the most, he lacks a bit of finesse, but he will make a difference to Arsenal. But obviously next week, they've got Liverpool next week, Kai Havertz probably out, so Gyökeres will have to prove it against the top team in the country. So, but for now, his confidence is up. 2 good goals, certainly 1 good goal and a penalty, so I think he'll be happy with that, and I think it gives him the confidence to...
Yeah, if you look at this Sunday Telegraph, Jonathan, Gunner's 5-star show, Gyökeres at the double, as Arsenal go top. It's a very embryonic Premier League table, of course, but getting one over Spurs, Arsenal fans. But big reasons to be optimistic, would you say, for this season?
Oh, I think so. I mean, I was at the game, and as we've been saying, there were so many different things happening, so many different emotions, I think, for Arsenal. That lifted the crowd. He's got the kind of the X factor, I think, that Arsenal traditionally want to see in the stadium. So that got the mood sort of bouncing. There's a big sort of pre-match hype from the announcer. This time wasn't really next level. It was quite plodding. It was a bit of a struggle. There was a little bit of unrest in the stadium. Fans asking for the ball to go forward a bit quicker. Set piece changed things. Saka's goal just before half-time was saying, well, that fantastic goal that he scored a lot of in Portugal, and that's why he's there. And then it just ramped up again when Max Daumann came on and just lit up the place with his sort of talent, and I think he put everyone's mood up. The Saka injuries will be a huge concern, and the Odegaard injury, but Arteta was so determined to keep the mood high. It has to be their year, and it's about starting well and almost keeping building a momentum of optimism and trying to stay really positive.
I think it's really noticeable, isn't it, that basically last season, if last season it happens and basically they have 2 injuries like that with Odegaard and Saka, that's it. Basically, the title challenge is over before the end of August. And let's be honest, both of those players missing significant period of time curtailed Arsenal pushing Liverpool hard in the title race. This time, I'm at Arteta's press conference on Friday. Well, the fact of the matter is then that he came back with a really strong answer, Arteta, basically saying, well, actually, our squad was nowhere near good enough, our direct rivals last season. We didn't have the depth, and he's right. If you looked at it, basically, there's so many time impact first team-wise. But yesterday, you had Nweri came on, and I thought he was excellent, really made a positive impression. I thought Madueke, who starts on the left, couldn't get into the game, goes to the right-hand side, and albeit, he wasn't on there for long, but I thought he showed what he can do, pre-match presentation on the pitch. I mean, he just looked like the kid who, had won the sort of the raffle and won the sort of the prize. Look at this. This is beautiful, this is what kind of football and signing for your boyhood, club is about. He's shaking his head in absolute delight. I love it. It's really hard. I kind of think Saka is the kind of the dream ticket. He's a player that I absolutely love, but I think Arsenal fans, going to fall in love actually with Eze, because he's just smiles, great character, lovely personality, and then suddenly, much more deeper than that, arguably 3, with Havertz, Saka and Odegaard going to Liverpool next week, they now have a backup and a depth that was definitely missing last season.
That was the theme of Arteta's post-match press conference yesterday, that we've learnt from our... It was put to him, you know, last year, if you'd had an injury to Saka, injury to Odegaard, the whole stadium would have been down. Arsenal fans would have been going, oh, it's over already. And he said, yeah, that's right, but it's different. You know, we've got this depth. This is exactly why we've made this recruitment.
It feels like a different vibe this year. And listen, I know we're 2 games in and they got Liverpool away next week, but when Liverpool have won the titles in recent years in the Klopp and slot, they've started really strong. They knew they had to because they were up against the great Man City team, and they put the foot to the pedal, went off straight away, got the confidence up, got the belief up. And I think with Arsenal as well, they know that people are saying, can you do it, can you do it? And it can go 2 ways. They can either bottle it and kind of shrivel with it, relishing that ability to prove people wrong, but it might all go out the window next week at Anfield. But still, they just feel different. They feel like they've got more belief and more confidence about themselves that they can finally win the title this season.
You mentioned, Jonathan, that you were at the game yesterday. You've written the piece in the Sunday Times about Arsenal living up to the hype, but injuries spoil their day. And I quite like this bit where you've said, Arsenal have never been so high as under Arsene Wenger, but goodness, his misfortunes brought stinging lows. And here they all were, all the emotions for the Emirates Stadium on a very Wenger day.
It did feel like a Wenger day. I mean, Crossy lived the Wenger years vividly, I'd imagine. But look, I always felt his reign, there was a beauty to Arsenal under Wenger, but it was really fragile. It could go wrong at any minute. It frequently did go wrong, didn't it? And injuries were a part of the Wenger story as well, if you think of Abu Dhabi's career. But there was something precarious about Arsenal, and it did feel a little bit like that yesterday, in that in this brilliant day, there was still that injury to Saka. There was still something going wrong, and you just saw fans living the whole thing. But what is very Wenger is Eberechi Eze. He's a pure classic Arsene Wenger style player, very much Arsenal values. And maybe Arteta's been criticised for not always embracing that element, and I think he's trying to embrace that element of Arsenal now, flair, a little bit of unpredictability.
You mentioned Eze there, that there's all this talk about Eberechi Eze making a call to Mikel Arteta on Wednesday, and I guess it adds fuel to those famous quotes from last season, I think, when Mikel Arteta said nobody says no to Arsenal. You can't really argue with him, given what's happened this week and in this transfer window, can you?
You can't. I do think Eze is maybe a completely different story in a way, in that basically this is a boyhood fan who basically admitted that when Arsenal released him as a kid at 13, he cried for a week and couldn't leave his bedroom, frankly. You know, I mean, I do love Eze, and Eze comes across as such a nice personality. So he's obviously entertained us all. Jono Powell even said to me on Thursday, blimey, for the last, say, 5-6 months, he's been the best player in the Premier League. And I said, really? And he's won the cup, and look at his performances. He has been exceptional. I do think that the kind of this summer has built him up into a whole new level. I mean, we've been writing about him all summer, and basically there's been a lot of interest in him. You know, Spurs have obviously courted him. He's been involved in a transfer tug of war, and it's almost elevated him to this kind of mythical status where he's kind of Pele and Maradona all rolled into one. No pressure there then. But I do think that Arsenal, I was at Old Trafford last Sunday, and it struck me that basically, yes, they've done some good business. Yes, they've made some good signings, but they've still got Madueke, who I do like, and I feel a bit sorry for him because I think he's come in for a lot of money. Well, the player doesn't set the price. He's a very, very fine player, and I wouldn't mind betting that basically some of those add-ons are, going to be pretty unrealistic to reach the 52 million. He'd probably have to win the World Cup while playing Tiddlywink standing on his head or something stupid like that. But I do think that Eze gives you an option down the left. He also gives you an option as the 10. He comes in as Arsenal's almost missing piece. I think he elevates the transfer window from one of great promise to one of real intent. And I think that's the difference. And that's why, as the Arsenal boyhood fan in him, I think he was prepared to. He knew Arsenal were interested. I'm completely, and that have made their, due diligence and calls and sounded him out and sounded his people out about sort of a potential move. And that's why Spurs never wanted to kind of get involved in a tug of war. It's to kind of, warn people away like me in July. And basically this week, I always felt, unless they were really definitive in the market, they'd be, and why weren't they? Well, I think an element of that is because and more demanding. I absolutely accept that. And I think there's a fair criticism of Spurs and Daniel Levy in particular. But I think there was always a feeling that Arsenal would come in. And basically, would Arsenal have wanted to do it after they made some sales? I think they probably would have. But I think then basically why it wasn't defined by Havertz, I think it probably focused their minds. And that Arsenal then made their move. He's a good signing.
You, Mark, and possibly Madueke to start that game at Anfield as well, because as much as we're saying, yes, Arsenal have done really well in this window and the squad looks much, much better than it did last season, Saka and Odegaard, you can't get away from it. They are going to be huge misses, aren't they?
And Havertz as well, probably.
Yeah.
So that is three huge players for you next week. I think as well with Eze, you have to kind of, in a summer where we've had lots of kind of transfer sagas and, players not painting themselves in the best possible light. Eze's been brilliant. He's handled it really well. He's not kicked off. He's played for Palace. And I don't know if you saw the statement he put out last night, his kind of farewell to Crystal Palace. It's the nicest statement you've ever seen. And the Palace fans are almost crying when they're reading it because he's just done it all in the right way. You look at the situation with Isak at Newcastle, which is not done the right way at all. But Eze's done it brilliantly. He's a player that is what I meant was a club that is ready to challenge for the biggest honours right now. Because I think Eze has deserved the right at 27. This is his big move. If you go to Tottenham now and it doesn't work out, then what is your next big move? But he's waited, he's bided his time, and he's got a move that he could play Champions League, could win the Champions League, could win the Premier League, and he's a player that is capable of doing that. He's good enough to do that.
OK, very, very quickly before we move on from Arsenal, in a word, we don't usually ask this question. Is this Arsenal's year?
I've been dubious about it, in a word. I still think Liverpool are the team to beat.
Mark?
I think it's Arsenal's year. I think they've got more solidity, and I think Liverpool have got issues in midfield, so I think Arsenal can win it this year.
Jonathan?
I think Eze tips it their way, but if Liverpool sign Isak, then